It doesn't have to be this way. Hey, girl. Down on your luck. You get a podcast, you can still terrorize people. And no, I do not want to be on it.
It was supposed to be just another night on The Daily Show. Jon Stewart, sharp as ever, sat behind the desk, smirking knowingly at the camera. For a moment, it felt like a nostalgic return. Until it didn't. In just one sentence, he shifted the entire conversation around Meghan Markle. Meghan Markle, he said, pausing just long enough, is basically a mini Brigitte Macron, great at slapping her man into place. The studio erupted with laughter. But outside those walls, a cultural fault line had cracked open. The internet didn't just react, it exploded. Memes were born within minutes. Twitter, or whatever people are calling it now, lit up with side-by-side photos of Meghan and Brigitte Macron. One image showed Meghan brushing Harry's hand away, captioned, "Boss babes or bossy babes?" The digital storm wasn't just mocking, it was revealing. Suddenly, a lot of people realized they'd been thinking the same thing for a while. They just hadn't said it out loud. And that's the thing about Jon Stewart. He's not your average tabloid punchline peddler. He's not Piers Morgan fuming from across the pond. He's not Megyn Kelly throwing political grenades. Stewart is a progressive icon, beloved by the very demographic Meghan's team has tirelessly tried to win over. Feminists, creatives, liberal intellectuals. Her people. And now they were laughing at her. Behind closed doors, the Sussex camp reportedly went into crisis mode. Meghan, sources claimed, was furious, humiliated. She didn't see the humor. She saw an attack, outdated, sexist, and mean-spirited. But the public didn't agree. To them, it was satire. Brutal, yes, but insightful, honest. The kind of comedy that only works when there's a kernel of truth hiding underneath the punchline. That's what made it land so hard. Stewart wasn't just riffing, he was dismantling. Layer by layer, joke by joke, he pulled apart the polished exterior Meghan had spent years building. He turned her empowerment narrative on its head and pointed out what many had been whispering, that her brand, once revolutionary, now felt performative. And then came the podcast. Confessions of a Female Founder was supposed to be a statement piece, a bold, intellectual series spotlighting women's voices. Instead, it played like a Whole Foods TED Talk, soft-spoken affirmations, carefully chosen guests, rehearsed vulnerability, nothing gritty, nothing raw, nothing that actually resembled the chaos and courage of founding something from scratch. Stewart's take? It's not about female founders, it's about a foundering female. The audience roared. In Montecito, a PR assistant probably drafted their resignation. What made Stewart's attack so effective wasn't just what he said, it was when he said it. Meghan's image had already been wobbling. Deal cancellations, cooling public interest, her Netflix project Pearl shelved before it even launched. The cracks were there. Stewart didn't create them, he just brought a spotlight. It wasn't just comedy, it was cultural commentary delivered with a scalpel. And what made it truly dangerous wasn't that it was mean, it was that it was precise. Stewart didn't rely on hyperbole or scandal. He didn't dredge up tabloid gossip or recycle tired royal narratives. He didn't have to. All he did was hold up a mirror, and the reflection was brutal. For years, Meghan Markle had walked a tightrope between elegance and activism, victimhood and leadership. Every public move was layered in symbolism. Every project, every appearance, every quote was part of a meticulously crafted image, one of a woman who stood for truth, empowerment, and justice. And for a long time, the world believed it. She was the breath of fresh air in a stale institution. She was the American spirit that blew through Buckingham's corridors, challenging the status quo. But over time, the freshness dulled. The image, so carefully polished, began to feel rehearsed. Even those who once admired her started noticing the cracks, the perfectly filtered family portraits, the spontaneous moments captured with suspicious clarity, the Netflix documentary that promised rawness but delivered safe, polished confessionals. The Oprah interview, once explosive, now rewatched with a more critical eye. How much of it was real and how much was just strategy? Jon Stewart didn't invent these doubts. He revealed how widespread they'd become. He made them mainstream. That's the real power of satire, not in creating division, but in exposing the fractures already there, and he wasn't done. Prince Harry didn't escape the roasting. In what might have been the most cutting line of the night, Stewart called him an unemployed immigrant who gave up his home and now carries his wife's handbag at charity dinners. It was a punch, yes, but a surgical one? Visual, sharp, easy to meme. And that's exactly what happened. Harry, once the bold royal who walked away from tradition, now stood as a background figure in his own story. Silent at events, smiling beside Meghan, echoing, not leading. His memoir, Spare, meant to reclaim his identity, had instead been read as a confused mix of therapy session and celebrity overshare. His journey, once seen as noble rebellion, now looked like curated chaos. The problem wasn't just the jokes, it was how quickly and widely they spread. In hours, clips of the segment were clipped, stitched, captioned, and remixed across social platforms. People weren't just laughing, they were nodding, they were sharing, and perhaps most damaging of all, they were relating. The mockery didn't come from hate, it came from fatigue. Fatigue from a narrative that no longer felt inspiring. It felt imposed. What happens when the carefully crafted story begins to feel like a script? When every candid photo looks staged? When every empowering message feels like a brand campaign? Audiences begin to disengage, not with outrage, but with indifference. And in the attention economy, indifference is more fatal than backlash. This is the moment Meghan and Harry find themselves in now. A crossroads not of scandal, but of apathy. Their greatest threat isn't criticism, it's irrelevance. And that irrelevance doesn't happen in a single moment. It creeps in gradually. First, the headlines become less frequent. Then the social media engagement drops. Netflix views stagnate. Spotify deals fall through. Invitations dry up. One by one, the opportunities that once defined their new life start slipping away. Not because of any one scandal, but because people simply stop caring. Even Hollywood, once eager to embrace the Sussexes as the face of modern royalty, has begun to distance itself. Executives who once saw brand gold in their names are reportedly cooling interest. Their public appearances feel fewer, the buzz has dulled, the silence speaks volumes. And now, Meghan's brand of hyper-curated visibility has become a liability. In a media world that increasingly craves raw, unfiltered content, her strategy feels outdated. People want flaws. They want failures. They want something real, not a polished fable. And when satire catches you standing in a spotlight of your own making, pretending to be something you're not, the fall is swift. The punchline, in this case, wasn't cruel for cruelty's sake. It was collective catharsis, a cultural sigh of exhaustion. Meghan's narrative of empowerment through curation had become too sleek, too untouchable, too manufactured. The public didn't want another flawless figure telling them how to rise. They wanted someone who'd actually stumbled and gotten up again. The laughter wasn't about ridicule, it was about release. And that's the subtle power of satire at its best. It doesn't destroy the subject, it deconstructs them. It asks the audience, what are we applauding here? What are we actually inspired by? The more the Sussexes tried to control the answers, the more detached they felt from the very public. They aim to reach. If Meghan wants to shift this narrative, it won't happen with another podcast or docuseries. It will take vulnerability, real vulnerability. Not the kind that's filmed in 4K with soft lighting and orchestral backing, the kind that lives in uncertainty, in admitting missteps, in letting people see the messy process behind the image. But that kind of transparency demands giving up control. And for someone who built a brand on controlling every frame, every phrase, every headline, that may be the hardest move of all, because now the world isn't just watching Meghan Markle, it's waiting to see whether she can be seen, truly seen, without the script. And if she can't, the laughter may fade, but so will the spotlight. What do you think? Is Meghan Markle still misunderstood? Or has the public simply moved? Bon, drop your thoughts in the comments below and let's talk about it. If this story caught your attention, hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss the next chapter in the royal unraveling. Because in a world where perception is everything, we're just getting started.